Welcome to the third episode of Minnesota Vikings Chat Podcast. This is a weekly podcast, the Minnesota Vikings Chat.com website, featuring me, your host, David Erickson, and Rick Birmingham in Minneapolis, and ADRIAN PERRYMAN in St. Paul. I got your name right this time, ADRIAN.
Yes.
So all three of us guys, we all play football together, and that's sort of the perspective that we bring to this podcast. Today we're going to talk about how obnoxious Green Bay Packers fans are, whether an openly gay player would be accepted in the NFL, whether the read option offense is here to stay. But first, most importantly for the Vikings, we'll discuss the all-important chemistry between a quarterback and his receivers. Vikings have a young quarterback in Christian Ponder, who they are vowing to start for his third season, and they've got a new receiving core. They traded away Percy Harvin. They've signed Greg Jennings. They've got a young receiver in Jarius Wright, and they re-signed Jerome Simpson. Presumably, will bring in some new receivers in the draft. So, Adrian, what do you think needs to be there for a successful chemistry between the receiver and quarterback?
I think they have to. I think the chemistry comes into play more later on, and like when a play runs on for 30 seconds and they're running around, they have to figure out what does this player do. But I think just having the skill on both levels is more important. Just running the crisp routes, knowing how far they can throw, having an accurate throw, knowing how fast your receiver is, all those things is more important than being able to have a mind sync, if you will, and be able to know where they're going to be. Because just having that stronger ability, knowing the receiver can catch up to the ball, knowing the quarterback can drop it in is much more important than the actual, I think, connection. I don't think they have to go out and hit the bar every night and be best friends and all that, as long as they have the ability to get the ball to each other and simply catch the ball and be under it.
Right. So what I hear you saying is consistency they need to trust each other. The quarterback needs to know where the receiver is going to be. A lot of that comes with practice. Rick, how do they develop that?
Practice. Simple. I don't know. I think there's probably two different ways. One, if you're just athletically superior, if you got Randy Moss, you throw the ball up, he goes and gets it. There's a lot of trust there. If you can throw it far enough, he's going to be okay. If you don't have that, and we don't really have that, I do think you're looking for consistency, and I need to know where you're going to be at 3 seconds into the play and at 4 seconds into the play, because something happens, somebody moves me off my spot as quarterback. I need to know where you're going to be a little later than that and where to throw it. And they're just going to have to practice it. It's going to be hard. We're probably going to have a lot of young receivers catching a lot of balls. That's good long term, but it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, well, the out route is sort of the perfect example of how that works. The quarterback needs to know how the receiver is going to run his out route, how sharp he's going to take that turn, and it's a timing route. And so the ball needs to be basically out of his hand before the cut occurs, or just as the cut is occurring, in order for it to be successful. But not all receivers run that or all the routes consistently, and it can be frustrating as hell as a quarterback to not know what your receiver is going to do. So with young receivers especially, where does the control of what control does the quarterback have in dealing with that? Is it just a leadership thing, Adrian?
Yeah, they'll see him in practice. They'll know if it's going to be more of a gamble. Of course, the quarterback will take more of the blame on Facebook and things if they do throw a bad throw or throw something that gets intercepted because the receiver messes up. But just simply practice and I don't know how Ponder is in practice. If he scolds the receivers if they mess up, if he's at that level yet, or if that's the coach's job. But taking that leadership role and letting them know they communicate that there was an error in the route, so it doesn't come to game day and they're still having that same error.
we talked about timing routes. Those are one thing, but then there's other the audibles come into play, and the quarterback sees something with the defense that he wants to take advantage of. The receiver needs to recognize that too, right? So how important is the receiver's ability to read a defense, Adrian?
I think that's important too. Yeah, they have to be in there watching film. That's one of the reasons I stopped playing football in college, because I was bored with watching film and all that stuff. But yeah, having that ability to know what the other guys are going to do and are going to make that play that extends longer turn into a big gain as opposed to a random throw out of bounds.
Right. Rick, you play a lot of quarterback. What are some of your frustrations with with receivers? Things that they don't do that they should be doing.
The one you already mentioned, the inconsistency. Like, you run the same play 10 times, the 11th time you decide to run it differently. It's a timing route. That ball is in the air before you cut. You decide to fake it an out instead of running it again. And as you say, just not paying attention to, if you've got a safety over the top and you don't even look where they are, it's frustrating. Just don't know where you should be. You're not paying attention to how you're being covered.
I have always told my nieces and nephews growing up, when I play catch with them, if you get a finger on the ball, it's your responsibility to catch it. Not all receivers feel that way. Is that a rule that should be lived by for receivers, Adrian, or no? Am I being too hard?
In the NFL, yes, definitely not. Saturday at Northeast Minneapolis may not need that, but in the NFL, yeah, you are being paid to be there. You're been doing this for years and years. You have the most advanced gloves and equipment and strong hands and all that stuff. You should be able to definitely position your body in a way to get the ball. Of course, if it can be a bad ball and if it's a strong spiral and all that, you can catch it. But if it's a wobbly ball, it could get harder. But definitely, as a receiver in the NFL, you should be able to get near the ball and catch it.
Well, there's the other thing: the frustrations that receivers have with quarterbacks, and that's one of mine in particular is wobbly ball. That's not always possible. Balls get tipped at the line of scrimmage. Quarterbacks are rushed, and they don't. If it's a shotgun, you don't always get a good grip on the ball, and you got to get the ball out of your hands right away. So it's not always possible, but it's a lot easier to catch a tight spiral than it is a wobbly ball. So, what are some of the frustrations as a receiver with a quarterback, Rick, that you feel?
Oh, you're wide open, and they don't throw it to you. They throw a pick on the other side.
Yeah.
I would say some of the same things. Not reading what's obviously right in front of you. Like, that they're sliding somebody over, and so you're not covered. We're having trouble getting 5 or 10 yards. You're not covered for 5 or 10 yards. Also, just inconsistency on the throws. Like, we've been doing this for a while now. Let's get on the same page where I'm supposed to be and where the ball is supposed to be. Don't throw it high and behind me.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of work that the Vikings have in front of them with the new receiving core and Christian Ponder. So hopefully they'll do a lot of work in the before the season starts. We did have a former Viking defensive coordinator, Mike Tomlin, now the Steelers head coach, claimed that the read option offense is flavor of the month. A lot of controversy around that comment, given the success of RG3 and Russell in Seattle and Kaepernick with the 49ers. So what do you think, Rick? Is the read option a flavor of the month or no?
Certainly it is, and there's always going to be flavors of the month. It may or may not survive and stick around and whatnot, but right now it's what we're talking about because it's new and it's interesting, and we've got a couple athletes that are able to do it, which is amazing that they don't get hurt. That stands out to me that Kaepernick pulls that off and doesn't get just snatched and thrown to the ground, and that's the end of the read option. All of those sorts of offenses are going to be so hard because you're so dependent on, how do you replace Kaepernick once you start running that a lot and practicing it a lot. If he goes down in the first quarter, you put somebody in there who's slower and hasn't been running that. I mean, how do you replace RG3 when he goes down with another athlete that can do that? It's incredibly difficult. So you hit the playoffs, a guy goes down, your team disappears, and then they'll declare that the read option is dead. You know, I think it is the flavor of the month, but that doesn't mean it's going to disappear. It's just interesting to talk about it, and they ran it incredibly well. It was fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, I think Tomlin's point was, and he was a defensive coordinator for the Vikings, defensive-minded guy, was that defensive coordinators are going to learn how to defend this, and it'll be like the Wildcat was a couple of years ago, where it sort of worked for a while with Miami, and they had a unique situation with those two backs in Ronnie Brown and what was the other guy's name? I forgot his name. And the other guy.
Ricky Williams.
Yeah, Ricky Williams. And then it started becoming not effective anymore. But I think the biggest thing is the quarterback's taking hit in the read option. And what you mentioned, Rick, is can the quarterback stay healthy? And we saw with Kaepernick, he was able to stay healthy. We saw with RG3, he got hurt. So I think that's the biggest thing. If you're going to do that, you probably need 2 read option quarterbacks on your roster. And the Vikings don't. The Vikings have maybe one with Joe Webb. Adrian, sorry I left you out of the discussion. You got anything on the read option?
No, I think it was the quarterback and injury thing. I never understood why a quarterback was so delicate compared to the rest of the players. Why they're doing the same workouts, they're running the same speed. Like a receiver can get smashed and get up and do the next play, but a quarterback has the potential to I don't know, need to be carried off on a cart. I think Kaepernick and other players like that are strong. Like, of course, RG3 had his injury, but that can happen to anybody. But I don't think that was more common for a quarterback. I think they can run as hard as they want. Roethlisberger and other guys are bigger than a lot of the other people, so they should be able to.
Roethlisberger is an exception.
They're all pretty huge, but yeah, you should be able to take the hit and keep going, just like any other player. I don't think you should have to wear the red jersey in the game and whatnot.
I would say some quarterbacks are more delicate than others, at least according to the officials. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, it get protected by the officials quite a bit. I hear what you're saying. They're still football players at the end of the day. So we just got this week through Supreme Court arguments about gay marriage. And the Vikings punter, Chris Kluwe, has been very vocal on the issue of gay rights. Vikings even have a former player who was closeted during his days as a player, but has come out after he retired, Ezra Tuilaolo. And so the question of the day here is, will the NFL accept an openly gay current player, either in the locker room or among fans? Adrian, what do you think?
Well, the NFL organization definitely will. I think they've said things that they're like, who was the receiver? Somebody who came out for the Ravens or something said something, and the NFL basically told them to shut up. Yeah. So the NFL as an organization, of course, will always approve it. Of course, it's better for PR and things. As far as fans, I think definitely yes. The majority of them, of course, it's like the U.S. There's both sides. Players in the locker room, it's going to be harder. From my experience in the locker room, there's the tough guys, or there can be a lot of slander that happens in the locker room, so that will be the hardest one to get over that, like the player who did say that. That will be the biggest step amongst many of the guys coming up from high school to college, and it's tough man guy stuff all the time, and anything like that happens, you're slandered and things like that. So that'll be the hardest part, but eventually I think it will become the norm.
What do you think, Greg?
I think it already is. There are more than 2 players in the NFL that are gay.
Right, but being openly gay is a different issue. So do you think they'll be accepted?
Yeah, I just think it'll happen. It's going to be difficult. It'll be challenging. But when we look back, it won't take all that long to adjust because it's already there. It's just not talked about. It's not, you're not showering with the gay man because he's out, and that's totally different than when he wasn't out. It's not that different. they're adults and they're very well compensated for difficulties like this, and it'll happen. It'll be okay. It'll be a lot of headlines. We'll be talking about it a lot, but it's already happening. We're just not talking about it.
Yeah, Adrian, it's interesting that you I would have thought it would be the opposite. That it would be tougher. Fans would have a harder time accepting at least a vocal minority anyway. Would be giving gay players a hard time, especially the opposing player. Just there's that on top of the fact that there's still homophobes out there. But I would think that the players, being this generation, millennials are probably the most accepting generation among all alive of gay people. That it would have been the opposite. But it's interesting to hear you say the macho culture almost would sort of trump that.
Yeah, it may have changed, of course, since I was in college, and the guys and the things they would say in the locker room, which is true. But maybe it's more coming from the African American culture at times is not as open with things from my experience and friends and things like that. But yeah, then we shall see. It's hard to say about that. But I think it'll depend on who comes out. If Adrian Peterson comes out and everybody, of course, everybody's gonna love him. But if it's somebody who's messing up and they say, oh, you can't play the game right, it might be a different story. So it may depend on who comes out.
Are you talking about punters? That's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're right. If a big name, I don't know, maybe, who knows, but I think you're right. If it's a big name, then that makes it a lot easier. Otherwise, I think if a handful of maybe lesser-known players come out at the same time, then that would make the transition a lot easier. So, but our funnest topic today is Green Bay Packers fans. Okay, so they move here, they take our jobs, they root for our baseball team, and after a decade or more of residence here many times, they don't even have the common decency to shut up about the Packers. What is it about Packers fans that is so obnoxious? Adrian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing. A Packer fan, if you're in Wisconsin, I understand that. But if you were born and raised in Minnesota and you have this strong passion for the Packers, I don't get it. And then you're extremely vocal about it. Wearing your green and all that. I don't understand it. It's a lifelong annoyance for me. My wife was in Duluth for a while, and it's amazing how many Packer fans there are in Duluth. I don't know if they feel like they're closer to Wisconsin than they are in being in Minnesota, but it just gets more annoying up there.
Rick?
Well, they're practically praying to a different god. That right there makes it difficult. And I think the crux of the issue is that the Vikings have lost a few games to the Packers. And if we just cut that out, there will be fewer Packer fans and they won't bug us. So Mr. Peterson has to take care of this problem.
Well, my whole thing is, how can you have any self-respect at all and dignity when you wear a block of cheese on your head? I mean, seriously. Vikings, proud warriors. Remember, we may wear braids, but we carry swords, right? But Packers fans, cheese on their head? Seriously? I threw this out to the Vikings chat Facebook page, and there was a comment that you alluded to as far as winning is concerned. During the 70s, when the Vikings were dominating the league, there wasn't so much. The Packers fans weren't as obnoxious because they didn't have that to hold over our heads. So there's that. I mean, there's certainly a bit of jealousy given the fact that the Packers are on a long winning streak. The rivalry has turned to their favor, and they don't get it that they've had quarterbacks who don't get hurt for like a Hall of Fame quarterback in Brett Favre, and now Aaron Rodgers, who's a superb quarterback, and he hasn't been hurt. And we've been going through the string of quarterbacks trying to find ours. So I think there's a little bit of that as well. Any more complaints about Packers fans by you guys?
I just think they're they're so proud of buying their stock in that has no value, which always annoys me.
That's right. They're also dupes. They
I don't think we should bring that up. I think we should just let them keep buying it.
True, and then they pay their taxes in Minnesota that support our stadium.
My other thing with Packers fans is their troll. I'm going to have to get a picture of a troll somewhere and put a cheese head on him, because whenever you go to Vikings fan pages or Vikings forums or something, there's always a bunch of Packers fans just stirring it up. I don't see that with other fans. You don't get that from Ravens fans. You don't get that from even Chicago fans. They just have some inferiority complex that they need to poke their nose into the Vikings business. So, our complaints about the Packers fans. We'll leave it at that. Let the viewers comment and leave their own comments about what's annoying about Packers fans. I'm sure we'll get out a lot. But let's wrap this. Rick, what's going on in your world these days?
This is the top secret, but the last week that people can get food in for Minnesota Food Share Month. So neighborsmn.org.
Okay.
South St. Paul.
Great organization. Give as much food as you can to neighborsmn.org. Adrian, what's up?
DJing as usual. I have a wedding tonight at the Graves Hotel. Should be all fancy and all that. But yeah, prom season's coming up. If you need a DJ for your high school dance, all that stuff, you got kids, all the above. Events by MV. M as in Minnesota, V as in Vikings.com.
If we do the podcast later in the day, could you be wearing a tux? Does it run off to...
I'm not that fancy.
Can we get you in a purple tux?
Yeah.
Get one. I'll wear
Probably a write-off.
We'll have to get you some Vikings clients. This is David Erickson. I am the publisher of MN Politics. That too.
Flashback.
Of MinnesotaVikingsChat.com and the host of the podcast. You can follow Minnesota Vikings Chat on Twitter at MN Vikings Chat and use the Vikings Chat hashtag to talk about Vikings. And like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Minnesota Vikings Chat. You can reach me at david@MinnesotaVikingsChat.com. Until next week, this is a wrap. Go Vikings! Thanks for watching the third episode of Minnesota Vikings Chat podcast. So what do you think? What is the receiver quarterback chemistry all that important, or what is needed for that to happen? Let us know in the comments below. Will a gay player be accepted in the NFL? Is the read option flavor of the month, or is it here to stay? And most importantly, what is so obnoxious about Green Bay Packers fans? Leave all your comments. Tell us what you think in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure you like it. Make sure you share it. Spread the love. Share it with all your friends and Vikings fans. And most importantly, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any more podcasts.